You are not poor because you don't work hard enough. You are not poor because you didn't get lucky. You are poor or stuck because of something nobody ever taught you to see. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The average person spends their entire life chasing money. The wealthy person spends their life building systems that chase money for them. That one sentence contains the entire gap. But understanding it, really understanding it, down to the behavioral level, takes more than a sentence. It takes a complete rewiring of how you think about time, value, and what money actually is. So let's start there. What is money? Most people, if you ask them, will say money is something you earn. You trade your time for it. You show up, you work, you get paid. This is called the employee mindset, and Robert Kiyosaki wrote about it in 1997 in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one of the best-selling personal finance books in history. Kiyosaki's central argument was simple and devastating. The school system trains you to be an employee. It teaches you to get good grades, so you can get a good job, so you can earn a good salary. And that system, he argued, is specifically designed to keep you dependent on a paycheck for the rest of your life. The wealthy do not think this way. They don't ask, how much can I earn per hour? They ask, how much can this asset earn while I sleep? An asset, in plain terms, is anything that puts money in your pocket without requiring your direct time. A rental property, a stock that pays dividends, a business that runs without you, a piece of content online that earns advertising revenue years after it was created. The wealthy accumulate assets. Everyone else accumulates liabilities, things that take money out of their pocket, and mistakes them for wealth. A new car, a bigger house than they need, subscriptions they forgot they had. This is not a moral judgment. It is a structural one. The mindset gap is not about character. It is about what you were taught to see as the goal. Here is where it gets uncomfortable. A 2019 study published by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that lottery winners, people who receive sudden, large windfalls of money, return to their original wealth levels within a few years in the majority of cases. The money did not change their trajectory. Their mindset did not change. And so their behavior did not change. And so the money disappeared back into the same patterns it came from. This is what psychologists call the financial thermostat, your internal set point for wealth. If your thermostat is set to $40,000 a year, your unconscious behavior will find ways to stay near that level, whether through spending, avoiding opportunities, or self-sabotage, regardless of what arrives in your bank account. The wealthy have a different thermostat. Not because they are smarter, because their thermostat was set differently, usually by what they watched and heard about money before the age of 10. Thomas Stanley documented this in The Millionaire Next Door, his landmark 1996 study of American millionaires. What he found shocked the researchers. The typical American millionaire did not live in a mansion. They drove used cars. They lived in modest neighborhoods. They were not flashy, but they thought about money in a fundamentally different way from the people around them. They measured wealth not by what they spent, but by what they kept and what their kept money produced. They were obsessed with one number, net worth. Not income, net worth, the total value of everything they own minus everything they owe. The average person is obsessed with income. The wealthy are obsessed with net worth. Do you see the difference? Income is a flow. Net worth is a structure. You can have enormous flow and a completely empty structure. This is how professional athletes and pop stars go bankrupt. It is how someone earning $200,000 a year can have less financial security than someone earning $60,000 who understood the gap. Now let's get specific. What does the mindset gap look like in real daily behavior? The first difference is how each group thinks about time. The average person sells time to earn money. 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year for 40 years. They trade the majority of their waking life for a wage. The wealthy person asks a different question very early. How do I make my time worth more? Not work more hours. Make each hour produce more. This leads them toward leverage, the ability to multiply your output beyond your direct effort. Leverage can be financial, like borrowing to invest. It can be human, like hiring people who are better than you at specific tasks. It can be technological, like building software that works while you sleep. Or it could be creative, like writing a book or recording a course that earns money for years. The average person is taught that leverage is risky. The wealthy understand that not using leverage is the real risk, because without it, you're always one health crisis, one layoff, one bad month away from zero. The second difference is how each group handles failure. The average mindset treats failure as a verdict. You tried something. It didn't work. That means you're not the kind of person who succeeds at that thing. So you stop. The wealthy mindset treats failure as data. You tried something. It didn't work. That tells you something specific about what needs to change. So you adjust. Warren Buffett, who at the time of his famous 2008 letter to Berkshire Hathaway shareholders had compounded returns of over 20% annually for 4 decades, has spoken repeatedly about the companies he bought that failed. He doesn't hide them. He analyzes them publicly. Because in the wealthy mindset, failure is not something to be ashamed of. It is the tuition you pay for the education that eventually builds real wealth. The third difference, and this is the one that most people miss, is how each group thinks about spending. The average person asks, "Can I afford this?" Meaning, do I have enough money in my account right now to cover this purchase? If yes, they buy it. If no, they wait until they do. This is the scarcity mindset in action. It treats money as something to be depleted and refilled. The wealthy person asks a different question. Is this the best use of this capital? Capital is just a word for money that is working. When a wealthy person spends $500, they're not just losing $500. They're losing $500 plus every dollar that $500 would have earned if invested. This is called opportunity cost, the hidden price of every purchase, which is not just the sticker price, but the compounded value of that money over time. Charlie Munger, Buffett's longtime business partner, called this kind of thinking the most important mental model in personal finance. Once you calculate opportunity cost, you can never look at spending the same way again. Here is the counterintuitive twist. The mindset gap has almost nothing to do with intelligence. Research by economist Sindel Lunathan, published in his 2013 book Scarcity with co-author Eldar Shaffer, found that scarcity, the feeling of not having enough, actually reduces cognitive bandwidth. In plain terms, when you're worried about money, your brain has less capacity to think about anything else. The constant low-level anxiety of financial instability consumes mental resources that could otherwise be used for planning, creativity, and long-term thinking. This means the poor are not poor because they think poorly. They think poorly in the short term, partly because they are poor. The cycle feeds itself. This is not an excuse. It is a mechanism. And once you see the mechanism, you can begin to interrupt it. The interruption starts with one decision. Not a big decision. Not quitting your job or investing your savings in something you don't understand. One small structural decision. Pay yourself first. Before you pay rent, before you buy groceries, before you spend a single dollar on anything. Take a fixed percentage of every dollar you receive and move it somewhere will work. 10% is the standard starting point. This is the foundational principle behind The Richest Man in Babylon, George Samuel Clasen's 1926 book that distilled thousands of years of wealth-building wisdom into a single rule. The wealthy do not say what is left after spending. They spend what is left after saving. That reversal is the entire game. Your mindset around money was built before you had any choice in the matter. It was built by watching the adults around you, by the conversations that happened at your dinner table, by the silence around topics that were considered too uncomfortable to discuss. You inherited a financial thermostat you never set. But thermostats can be reset, not by reading one book, not by watching one video, but by consistently choosing, in small daily decisions, to ask a different question. Not, can I afford this? But, is this the best use of this capital? Not, how much am I earning? But, how much is my net worth growing? Not, what do I get paid? But, what am I building that will pay me when I stop working? You are not poor because you don't work hard enough. You were never taught to ask the right questions. Now you have been.